Well, I've arrived back down at Thorney Island, and the next step is taking Jenny J over to Dell Quay because she's going to be coming out of the water in a couple of days' time. So it's a bit of a rigmarole to do this. I have to kind of drive down. Well, today I drove down to Dell Quay, left my bike down there, and now I take the boat from here, having taken the mooring strop off the mooring, because that doesn't stay on the mooring over the winter, and I motor around to Dell Quay towing my tender, and then I come out of the water. Well, I come out of the water with the tender today, leaving the boat on a mooring because she's twin keel. She'll sit on the mud at Dell Quay on a mooring there for a couple of days. Then I've got to somehow get the tender ashore, which I should be able to do. I'm sure I'll be able to get somebody to help me with that. And then cycle from Dell Quay back round to Thorney Island to collect my car. So that's the process. That's what I'm going to do today. So middle of October, and a beautiful morning. I think those clouds there are amazing. I think, you know, we're getting we've had high pressure for 10 days, and that is passing now, and I think those buoyant looking clouds over there in the dawn are a kind of sign of slightly more interesting weather. Probably wet and windy is really what I mean, because it's been dull and grey really. Right, here we are. So the other thing I'll just tell you about while I'm walking back down, just taking the trolley back up to its spot, locked it up for the winter, and walking back down to the tender. So yeah, so today motoring across to Dell Quay, then I'm going to do the engine service, which I'll try and show you a bit of, give you a sense of how I do that. And I'm also going to put a bit of coolant in the kind of raw water section of the system, just enough to put it through the system, not hopefully enough for it to go back out into the sea. So it'll all be still warm. Won't have to restart the engine cold to do that, which is not ideal. I had to do that last year because I didn't do this stage whilst I was still on the water. So yeah, that's the plan. I will keep you posted. This aluminium dinghy is not too bad. The oars are slightly too short really. My hands would like to be a little bit closer together. That's all good. So it's secured with monal wire, which I'm going to clip off. Two places. cool. What a lovely noise they make. I now have to just extract the tackle here, which I'll do in a sec. Take it to below. But I've done that job sometimes, and a lot of wind with the tide, it can be pretty unpleasant bouncing around trying to take it all off. Anyway, there we go, that's that bit. I can now relax, make myself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and get myself set for the tootle round to Dell Quay. Yeah, so I've got aboard, picking a cuppa here. Coffee and pisto, maybe not. Coffee and coffee mate. It's like rock, this coffee mate. I might need to get some more. Make sure we've got some cooling water coming out the back. Sounds good. Well, I've arrived, picked up a mooring, and the sun's coming out, which is nice. Oh, it's okay. Start to do this oil change. I've got some more oil here and more backup oil. I'm not quite sure how much she takes. You know, it all depends, and certainly you can never get all of the oil out of this engine. So I'll just turn this down. You know, the capacity of the engine is, I don't know what it is, something like 5 or 6 litres. I can only ever get something like 4.5 out of it. Pumping it out with the, it's got its own little pump here. And I've also got a pump, which if you've watched an early video, I've got one of these round ones, spherical ones, which you know, I tried dipping that into where the dipstick goes in here, putting that right down to the bottom of the tank, thinking I'd get more out doing that, by basically with a vacuum. It's a vacuum pump that pulls it out from the bottom of the sump. Because having used this, I thought, well, it doesn't seem to get the whole lot out. But I can't do it either way. It doesn't seem to make much difference. But you know, it changes the majority of the oil. So I can only think that must be fine. I mean, I don't necessarily anyone can put something in the comments to suggest otherwise. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what we end up extracting. Now I've got to get a little hose onto this. Okay, so here it is. I'm just going to heat the end up from the heater outlet here, just to kind of make it really warm. Pliable. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, well you can't see this, I'll show you. Here's the little pump, and this is the outlet, and I've got to get that over there. I'm going to have to put the thing down, pump that into the, got to undo the stopcock here. Here we go. Actually, I think it's sensible to open the top of the oil filler so I don't get any vacuum. I think. I'm not sure there's a need for that, but I'm going to do it. So the engine's super lovely and warm. Well, that's the important bit done really while the engine's warm. See, this last step is to replace the oil filter, which I'll do in a sec. So obviously getting the oil out when the engine's warm is a good thing, although this inbuilt pump makes it fairly straightforward, so I'm you know, not quite sure it's totally necessary. But somebody might explain why, even with a system like this, it is a good idea when the engine's warm. I'm sure it does make it easier to pump. Place the oil in it. Now you is so here's the oil filter. We'll take that out next. This is also a potentially messy operation. Well, it's coming off nice and easily. Right, tray underneath. quite a bit of oil. There we go. Now, I think I will try and just pour what's in the filter back into the this waste tank. Just kind of pouring that in through a funnel to get rid of the most of it. Okay, and I'll bag that up. So the new filter is here. Put that back in the box in a minute. Okay. Also get rid of that in there. So I think that's good. Down there. So I want to tip that over, get it off. Okay. So the new filter needs to have it's got this new seal on it here. I need to put a little bit of old oil, well, it can be whatever oil, around the seal to kind of lubricate it a little bit, so it sits really nicely against the flange here. And screw this new one in. Make sure I don't cross the thread. Now, it says here, apply a thin film of oil to the surface of the gasket before screwing. Turn the filter firmly by hand until it meets the base and then twist 3/4 of a turn. Okay, so that's always something I can make sure I remind myself of. So make sure it's, so that's firmly against there. So this symbol should be down there then when I've finished turning it. Yeah, there we go. So that's not really tight, it's firm, very firm, but it's not really tight. And that's exactly the way it should be. So that's all good. So now I've done that, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. See, all part of working on a boat. Look, I mean, you're going to have to do a small job and the boat is completely log jammed with stuff, things open and getting in the way of everything else. But it's just a typical way of things that happen. You know, look at the fore cabin, you know, there's stuff in there, all just so I can get stuff out in order to do a bit of servicing on the boat. But you know, it's just the way you have to work, and then you put it all back again, it's fine. Okay, so trying to put some new oil in. Little funnel here, I've got some oil I've had for a while, and let's see how we go with this. Okay, I think it's worth another dip. See if we're kind of in the ballpark. Oh yeah, that's looking good actually. That's about halfway up the dipstick between the two measures. So obviously we're going to have to probably put a bit more in. In fact, I might just do that anyway, because it's got to find its way around. And that fuel filter, the oil filter, takes, I don't know how much, but certainly I'm going to just put a little bit more in. Just, so I'm confident that it'll need that. Okay, let's try that. Okay. I've got my Perspex washboard in here, the warmth thing for me. Yeah, I'll just put that back on. Okay, she's all good, everything's as it should be. Okay, so the final kind of main project for today is to put some coolant in the raw water side of the cooling system. So the first thing I've got to do is to shut off the seacock, which is down here. I don't know whether this camera's going to pick it up at all, but it's down here, and I'm going to turn that off, otherwise water will come rushing in. Squeeze around here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to disconnect, because this is the raw water feed, comes up here through the impeller and through this pipe into the heat exchanger and then out through the exhaust system via, I think, this system here, which will prevent, you know, back feeding of seawater into the you know, if you're sailing heeled over and stuff. It's all part of the kind of project process for doing that. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is now suck up a bucket of fresh water and coolant mixed into the engine. I'm just going to run it for a few seconds. It'll be the last time it runs, to get that mixture into the raw water system, down into the exhaust, which also kind of has seawater normally sitting in it. Hopefully this is enough to do that. I don't really want to kind of propel this out into the sea with coolant in it, but it's a little bit of a judgment thing. Anyway, I'm going to fill this bucket fairly full with a mixture of the two, and that will hopefully be enough. So yeah, I'm not going to use all of this because I, you know, not hugely expensive, but it does cost money, and just a decent percentage of this I think will do, and the fact that it's fresh water, not seawater, will do an awful lot to protect the raw water side of the engine. Again, somebody will probably make comment about whether this is good or not, or how you do it. Okay. we'll put some more fresh in that. So I have turned off the raw water seacock, so I can now undo this. I might get some clamps just to hold things. Just a bit of seawater, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay. It's all right. Right, so I've got a hose here, which I'm sure I've used last time. This comes down into the tank. Jubilee clip, or clip, not Jubilee clipper. Clamp to hold that in place. Got to be confident that's not going to move. Right, and you can shout if I've run out of water. So that's all ready to go. Just off the bottom of the tank of the bucket, that's good and secure. Right, start the engine for the last time. Suck all that out. There we are. So I can take the rest of that ashore in a bucket, in an old can I've got. Put this back. So I reckon there's enough there to get through the majority of the system, and if not pretty much the whole thing. But yeah, leave your comments about whether I've put enough through. I don't know. I can't imagine it would need more than that. There's quite a lot of pipe work and stuff in the engine system. And obviously the kind of actual exhaust box, which is stainless steel, that's fairly sizable. And then of course there's the whole pipe out to the back of the boat. So I don't know, it may not be enough, but one thing's for sure, it would have done a lot, certainly at the front end of the system. And I will take the cover off this and the impeller out. For some reason, again, leave your comments about why people do that. it's going to be changed in the spring anyway. Final important part is to clean up. Try to keep the engine, wiped down. No, it's not a really proper clean. This is just kind of taking off any bit of old paint coming off. It's really inevitable after a while. Just taking off the old oil, and obviously just anything that's looking as if it needs a little wipe down. And also the bottom of the boat here, the bilge, just to keep it clean. You can then see if you're getting any liquids coming out of the engine that shouldn't be. It's just much easier to monitor it if it's clean and dry down here. When she comes out of the water, I will give it a proper clean. The bilges are a little bit wet in places, but not seriously. It's actually mainly fresh water, to be honest. From the, I think it's probably all fresh water from bits and pieces getting in through the windows mainly, but also from the fridge, which overflowed with a beer the other day, which somehow managed to, it was on its side, and the cap had somehow leaked. I don't know how, it's not opened, it was just leaked, so I ended up with beer in the bilges, which was a bit, yeah, anyway. So that's the idea there. Keep it clean. Yeah, and also of course during the winter you want the bilges as dry as possible, and everything in the boat as dry as possible. And I will be bringing down my dehumidifier, which I run quite a lot, which does keep the boat really dry inside, which is brilliant. So I can, even in the yard here, I can connect up to shore power. I'll maybe show you that later when I've got that in place. Okay. That's not too bad. Good. So yes, I think there are probably worse engine bays than in a Moody 31, but there's not a lot of space in here. Down there, port side of the engine here is particularly tricky. I wouldn't want to try and deal with an alternator problem, because that's down here. Sorry, not the alternator, that's there, the starter motor. That would be a bit of a nightmare. But again, if anyone's got comments and the other thing that seems really tricky to get to is the coolant tap. And I'm not, maybe someone will say, oh, actually it's quite easy or whatever. If anyone's got any comments, that would be really helpful. Because it does need, I've siphoned some coolant off this year and put new in from the top of the tank here, but it needs to be replaced. And I'm going to do that this winter, but I'll either do more siphoning, which isn't the right thing, it doesn't get enough out, or I'll work out how to do the tap or get someone to help me. Anyway, yeah, that's so there we go. I think that's all done. The engine is now ready for winter, and there's still more things to do. There's always things to do. I found I made a list of another probably 7-8 things after the list I put on my last video of things to do this winter. Lots of them are quite small things. One of, for example, is the instrument panel here. these screws really hold on to very little at the moment. There are old match ends in there to hold these screws, help hold these screws in place. I've got a piece of wood I've made to go behind this, which I haven't done yet. This is held in okay for the moment, but it's another little job to take that out, fit that during the winter, because this panel hasn't been, re-engineered since it was new, I don't expect. And my little Moody sign keeps falling out. That belongs in there. Yeah, there we go. That needs a little bit of attention. Anyway. Well, I would show you a shot of Jenny J, but she's behind that westerly consort, Van Der, on the temporary mooring till she comes ashore here. Up this ramp behind the tractor, into the yard. So there we are, there's the tender. I parked it up for the moment temporarily, and here's my steed to get me back to Thorney Island Sailing Club. About an hour's ride, wind behind me, pity I can't hoist a sort of spinner or something to keep me going along. Anyway, it should be quite a pleasant ride. So there's Chichester Cathedral, and I'm on the Sultan's Way for this little ride on my bike. Avoid some of the little narrow lanes. Well, got back on the bike, so the trip is nearly complete. Got to go back to Dell Quay, pick up oars, boots, which are kind of down by the dinghy. Yeah, cool. Oh, just chatting with people. Right, get the bike in the car. Right, well, final part of the trip back to Dell Quay. Just been chatting to one of our club members. And this is just to show you how appalling my memory for names. I've already forgotten his name, but he's a shipwright. Been working on HMS Victory, which is, wow, that's an amazing thing to be doing. And he's just been sailing his twister this morning up to Emsworth, and sounds like it had a nice trip. He sails on and off his mooring, which is deeply impressive to me, with quite a heavy boat, but he's been brought up on boats, so he's obviously a real natural.
It is the tourism industry that keeps that shop viable throughout the year because of the increased footfall we see in those communities.
Yep, there she is. Tide's going out now. picked up my oars, boots, ready to come out. Yeah, so here she is, ready and waiting to be hauled up the slipway at Dell Quay. So there's Andy just checking where to put the pads on the back. Jack's driving. Lifting her up. So Jenny J was last out this evening. She'll get scrubbed down tomorrow morning and given a spot in the yard.